The views expressed on this program are those of the producers and individuals appearing on this program and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Sun Prairie Media Center staff, its video service providers, or the staff and elected officials of the City of Sun Prairie.
Hello and welcome to Real Reviews. My name is Jamison Rabbit, and this week I am once again joined by special guest Michael Seleskie. There he is. You know him, you love him. How you doing, sir?
Glad to be back. We got some very varied movies today, some very different stuff.
Yes, they are a bit all over the place.
Yeah, but that's variety's the spice of life.
And as usual, when I have you on here, there's a special movie, a specialty that I brought you on directly for.
Bring in a special hitter for a special case.
That's right. But first, let's get started with what we have on the marquee this week. And we're going to get started with the newest film from director Alex Garland. It is his new film called Men. Alex Garland, you might know from previous A24 films like Ex Machina and Annihilation. Men, though, is a film starring Jessie Buckley as a lady named Harper. Harper has rented an English cottage in the countryside in order to get away following a tragedy. She's gone away to get some alone time and deal with the trauma that was involving her partner. She's rented this place from a nice landlord, seemingly innocent landlord, Jeffrey, played by Rory Kinnear, who he's affable enough, and things start to kind of ratchet up in this movie when she encounters a man while she's out walking in the woods, a man who is fully nude and staring at her. It's a jolting image, to be sure, and as she continues trying to find some peace, she wanders into the nearby town, where at the local church, she is met by a vicar, also played by Rory Kinnear. In fact, every male character basically in this movie is played by Rory Kinnear outside of her loved one. She's met by a vicar as well as a young child, maybe 10 years old, wearing like a blondie mask, and when he takes that off, it's the face of a man, which is always disturbing to me. But it's when she wanders into the pub in this town that she begins to sense that things are not okay, because everyone in this town is a man and all seem to have that same face. She retreats to the refuge of her cottage. She is visited by each of these men, including our naked friend, in what becomes the horror portion of this film. And I don't want to give away a lot about the end of this movie in specifics, but the film is kind of, Alex Garland is a master at sci-fi thrillers. And this film, he liked to really use a lot of religious and biblical imagery to kind of invoke some tension and such.
Yeah, not just religious, but like Brythonic, the old Celtic religion stuff in there too.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of stuff going on in here. What do you think of Men? Let's say the first 2/3 of this movie.
And I think there's a distinction there that has to be made. The thing that I've always loved about horror is that in good horror, you get this play between rising tension and then a release. And I think this movie does a really good job of it. And the first 2/3 of this movie, you get periods where the tension is sort of slowly being ratcheted up, and then you'll have a section where the tension is being released. You think that things are going to get better, but you know that every time they click that ratchet up, it's going to get a little bit more crazy. I think this is, especially the first 2/3 of this movie, is a really good example of what elevated horror can be. This isn't his normal sci-fi adjacent shtick. This is straight. This reminded me a little bit of at times of The Babadook.
Okay.
There's some elements of that in there. And I thought we were in for I was sitting in ready for a very good, solid ending to this film that I don't think it landed the...
Yeah, and that's the problem.
Landed it.
Is I like the themes that Garland is building on. Like I took it as the character of Harper is really she's dealing with this trauma and this abuse, and she sees every man as shades of being the same person. That's how I took the use of Rory Kinnear, who is kind of masterful in this, bringing the different physicality to all the characters, and how she's, some of these men are outwardly cruel, but most of them keep it held back until they reveal how they want to control her.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty telling that she never remarks on the fact that every male that she meets in this town has the face of Rory Kinnear.
Yeah.
So that to me was an illusion that this is being played out in her head. There's some things toward the end of this movie that make you wonder whether what she was experiencing was in actuality happening to her.
That's what I thought too.
Or not. And I thought that the fact that all of the male characters in this town, the vicar, the landlord, the young boy,
the bartender,
the cop, they all have the same. Every man has the same face. She does meet one other female, the female cop who comes in.
Oh yeah, you're right.
And
yes.
she does not look like Rory Kinnear.
No.
So,
Very pleasant.
but you know what? I think you have to look at this movie in two chunks. And the first 2/3 of this movie, I was really excited for them to build up to something really big that just the last 20 minutes of this movie.
It went from creepy to disturbing.
Yes, very
for
quickly.
me, and it's not an easy watch or an easy recommend. I do enjoy Garland does so much visually and does so much with the sound in this movie.
Yep.
And I love long still shots of Jessie Buckley, and you see her working through it. And it reminded me, especially towards the end, it reminded me of Darren Aronofsky's Mother.
Yes.
Very similar. Also a young lady who's just trying to live her life, and the man in her life is making everything chaotic.
The way this movie ended, it felt to me like it was oops, all symbolism.
Yeah. Yeah.
There was never, I was waiting for the explication. I was waiting for the examination of putting a couple things together and them coming up with either a supernatural or some sort of meaning this was in her head, and we just never got there. Like I said, it was oops, all symbolism.
I did not know what was going on in that final 20 minutes. I brought my 19-year-old son, who at the end said, "What did you just make me watch?" Because it turned almost into a Cronenberg homage of body horror for the last
20
15,
minutes.
Yeah.
I can recommend this movie to fans of horror. I can recommend this movie to fans of Studio A24. I'm a committed A24
Absolutely.
stan.
I'm a card-carrying member.
I know you are. People I don't recommend this movie to, specifically my mother, Teresa, if you're watching this, don't watch this movie. It's not for you.
It's not a great date night movie.
No, it's not. There's a lot of people I don't recommend this movie for. In fact, I paired this as a weird double feature with another movie that we're watching today. Thankfully, my wife didn't come to this movie, but I met her.
You told me you were doing this double feature, and I was hoping that you brought her.
No.
I would love to know your wife's reaction.
Her reaction was when I walked into the theater and sat down next to her with a 100-mile gaze in my eye. She goes, "How was that movie?" I went, "Yeah.
I've seen some stuff, man.
Yeah.
You don't even know."
Nope.
All right, let's get to our scores. What did you end up giving Men?
I gave it 2. Like I say, I think this appeals to some people. I don't think this is going to appeal to a main movie-going audience. But like I say, if you're a fan of elevated horror, give this a try.
Yeah, I enjoyed a lot about this movie. Like, I really enjoyed the first 2/3, 3/4 probably.
Yeah.
And think Jessie Buckley is just a superstar. And,
she's great.
Boy, that end with that, boy, it's unforgettable, that's for sure.
Buckle up.
But I ended up giving it 3.5 based on that first 3/4 of the movie.
Yeah, if you would have made me stop 20 minutes
And then
before the end, I think
pull the ripcord.
Yeah.
But it's also a movie that I have a hard time recommending to people.
Absolutely.
So let's move on to what else we have on the marquee this week, sir. You saw a film that I didn't. What do you have for us?
All right, I saw Downton Abbey, The New Era. In a summer of fast action movies, unbelievable multiverse-spanning comic book sequels, and movies in which dinosaurs rule the earth, I cordially invite you back to what really matters, the slow decline of the Edwardian aristocracy. Welcome back to Downton Abbey, The New Era. I would argue that to this point in the saga of Downton, the whole series has been the best form of historical period drama. This continuation does not disappoint, nor does it revolutionize the type of storytelling that only this collection of BAFTA-winning recipients can give us. One of the things that makes Downton Abbey a classic period drama is that it takes great actors, a dramatic setting, and doesn't tie the characters to real historical events of the time. Sure, the cornerstones of World War I, things like that are in it, but the story of Downton isn't about that. It's about how these characters deal with the struggles of the era. Fan-favorite actors return to chew the gorgeous scenery. They thrust and parry witty repartee and carry on with their lives of obscene privilege and prestige, all while knowing that things in Downton cannot carry on forever. The torch is being passed to new generations both upstairs in the quasi-political dynastic struggle of the Granthams and downstairs in the revolving door of the house management. The upstairs-downstairs drama acts as a curtain call for Dame Maggie Smith, who has steered the Grantham family through the storms of the past. Her character is the recipient of an unexpected inheritance of a palatial villa in the south of France, though how it ended up in her hands is the fulcrum by which the plot is moved to its conclusion. The B story involves the filming of a newfangled talking movie picture at Downton Abbey, giving us what Hollywood really loves to do, making movies about making movies. Big-time celebrities end up at Downton, being waited on by the staff, and the hilarity ensues. Maybe watch the 2019 movie before going into this movie. I wish I had. I felt like I was playing catch-up for the plot for the first 15 minutes. If you're a Downton fan, as I am, this movie's perfect. I can tell you that my wife and I were the only people in the audience who didn't have first-hand knowledge of the Nixon administration, but if you've enjoyed the show and the previous movie, you'll really enjoy this latest installment of Downton Abbey. Downton Abbey is being played to sold-out afternoon matinee showings at your local Marcus Theater, or at other times too, not just the afternoon matinees.
I gotta get home for 4 o'clock dinner.
Yeah.
I've never seen a second of the show nor the previous film, and I've been told a lot about it by my mother. But
I think it has a rabid fan base among people that, I will say it skews to an older demographic, because it's like I say, it's not action packed. I liken it to Game of Thrones without any of the blood or there's politics involved, but none of the blood or the gratuitous sexuality.
Yeah.
It's very
Who wants
neatly
all
done.
that?
Who wants all that? I think it's really neatly done, actually.
It looks beautiful. I mean, every time I see the trailer, I'm like, oh, that looks gorgeous.
And the thing that I think distinguishes Downton from a lot of other period pieces like this is, like I say, they have the ability to continue on this story through a long time because it's not revolving around, World War I. It's not revolving around the sinking of the Titanic. It revolves around these characters kind of dealing with the fact that the aristocracy to which the upstairs people, the Granthams, have been born into and are working through, it's kind of slowly dying out. The great families of the north of England, the rest of the aristocracy, they've kind of all been parceled out, and the Granthams are still kind of holding on. And you care about that to an extent, but what you really care about is the plot of the house servants and the butlers and the valets downstairs, who you've been with for several seasons of the PBS show, one really solid movie, and like I say, this solid movie, there were a lot of laughs.
Good.
It really worked with the audience. I really enjoyed it. Like I say, I couldn't believe, this shares a running time with the movie that we are going to review later in the show, and I can't believe how much time flew quicker in this movie.
Oh, okay.
How much
That's
better
always
it was. It was a wonderful 2 hours in the movie theater. And you left, they didn't necessarily tease a sequel, but you could see where they could carry on with sequels. So I was very happy with it.
Excellent. Well, give the folks your score on Downton Abbey. What do you think?
Like I say, if you're a Downton fan, go see it. It's 4 out of 5. I can't say it's a perfect movie because there are things that are just, that are never going to be perfect about it. And if you've not seen any of the others, I don't recommend seeing it because you're going to be lost beyond comprehension. But if you like Downton, go see it. It's 4 out of 5.
Very pleasant. I like that.
Yeah.
Let's move into our streaming spotlight section. I have a film that I watched that I want to tell you about. It's a film called You Won't Be Alone from director Goran Seleskie. It is his debut film. This is set in 19th century Macedonia. A witch appears before a mother and her infant daughter. The frantic mother offers a deal to the witch to not take her infant daughter right then, right there. The deal is, let me raise my daughter until she's 16, then you can have her. The witch agrees and, as collateral, takes the infant child's vocal cords to seal the deal. The mother hides the daughter in a cave for 16 years and hopes to keep the witch away, and hopefully the witch will just forget about her. But when the young girl turns 16, the witch returns, taking on the form of her mother. As the witch tries to raise this young girl, Navina, who is played by Sarah Klamaska, the witch becomes frustrated. This poor girl that has been literally living in a cave with no interaction for anyone is just naive and she can't figure things out. Meanwhile, Navina takes on some of the powers that the witch has. She's able to take on the form of a local villager that she comes across, played by Noomi Rapace. And the film is basically a series of these women moving into bodies in a very grotesque manner. Very similar to what we saw in Men.
Wow.
And Navina knows nothing of the world. And inhabiting these various bodies, she begins to learn about human emotions, how humans work. She moves into a young woman's body. She moves into a man's body. She can take on any form, whatever. And she sees this cruel world, but she can't participate in without a voice. She sees how women are treated by men in this time, 19th century Macedonia. And as she hops into these various bodies, she's kind of like an alien learning to mimic humans.
Okay.
And it's awkward at times. It's very strange. And she's kind of emulating and learning human emotions and actions. And the witch comes and goes. And it's a beautiful film. It shows beauty and it shows darkness. You have these beautiful landscapes, this wide open area, and then there's also these hovels in darkness that these people live in. And there's horrible things happening to mostly the women that are in these places. And she learns about the place of women there through the eyes of these ladies. And it's just, it gets very ethereal. Like a lot of it is done with, and it's all in Macedonian. So it's obviously subtitled.
Subtitles throughout.
But a lot of it is narrated over the top. This young girl is narrating in a very breathy whisper. And it felt a lot to me like a mix of Terrence Malick's Tree of Life.
Okay.
Meeting Robert Eggers' The Witch is like a very strong Venn diagram between those two movies. And it's really interesting, and especially when you think it's from a first-time filmmaker, it seems like it's an interesting take on a witch story.
So do you think this falls into a horror or a fantasy, or is it sort of an Aesop's fable sort of deal?
Yeah, it's more that. The horror is there, but the film is really, a lot of the film is really you just watching people live their everyday lives.
Sure.
Through the eyes of this girl who doesn't know and randomly decides, I'm just going to kill you and become you now. Okay. But a lot of it is very slow moving. Let's just watch how humans work. Okay. But for me, it worked quite a bit. And it got me really thinking, like, I got to keep this guy's name because this is a first-time film. It's a little long. It's 2 hours and change. And I did check the time a couple of times because there were long stretches that were just repetitive and just kind of like, okay.
Yeah,
all right. How long are we gonna thresh that hay?
Yeah. Sometimes with these independent films, with these smaller flicks, you kind of roll the dice and you see whether it's going to be something that's going to add to your collection of things. That I think we all keep a list of movies in the back of our head, going, "Hey, if we run into somebody interesting, these are the movies that we want to tell them about." That might not be on the beaten path to kind of show you. That you're a little bit quirky.
And that's kind of what this felt like. I think patience was a virtue with this one, though, to hang with it. It's similar to Men. It's really all about this tone that's being set in this movie.
Yeah.
And I was there for that. And seeing this evil spirit reinvented, I like that. And it's an original story. I appreciate original stories.
You got to appreciate original stories in this day and age where you get lots of sequels and lots of IP that gets handed from studio to studio. It's kind of nice to see something new and original. That's what we go to the movies for, is to be entertained with stuff that we necessarily haven't seen before. So.
Absolutely. And I believe this film was streaming on Peacock.
Okay.
I believe is where I discovered this film. And so, yeah, it's worth it. It's an enjoyable film. And I'll watch anything with Noomi Rapace in it because I think she's just incredible. Mm-hmm. Really enjoyed her. So I ended up giving this film 4 out of 5 stars.
Wow.
Recommend it. Go check it out if you have a couple hours of spare time laying around. Our other streaming spotlight this week is very different from anything else. What do we have?
Well, I mean, we're talking about, we're talking about newness and being original. That's not what we get with the Valet. Straight-to-streaming romantic comedies should be treated with the same universal derision as straight-to-video Disney sequels. This genre is not for the faint of heart, and in a medium in which the consumer is spoiled for choice and how best to spend their time, Only ride-or-die fans of the streamy, steamy, chuckly dramas will find much to recommend The Valet. The Valet tells the story of our titular valet, Antonio, played by Eugenio Derbez, who, while struggling with his own breakup, is set up by another couple to pretend to be romantically involved with starlet Olivia, played by Samara Weaving, to provide cover for Olivia's adulterous relationship with Vincent, played by Max Greenfield. Antonio doesn't want much, just the opportunity to restart things with his ex, help her with her money issues, and find a way to stop gentrification in his neighborhood. Also, if he could bring dignity and recognition to the Hispanic community of Los Angeles, that would be a bonus. Through bog standard, tried and true rom-com standards such as not starting out liking each other, learning to like each other, inexplicably breaking up, then finding a way to resolve the conflict, Antonio and Olivia will win the big race down the ski mountain and stop the 1980s villain from bulldozing the rec center or something. Families will be met, awkward situations will be had, and gorgeous women will throw themselves at our main character to the point where I had to double check to make sure that he wasn't the writer of this film. Either way, over 2 hours after this exploration of banality starts, it mercifully ends with some of the conflicts being resolved, several of the characters having grown, and some plot points begging you to ask why we spent so much time caring about what happened to the private detectives, and why any of this was worth our time. The Valet, streaming, available on Hulu.
So I have things I like and things I don't like about this movie.
Yeah.
The things I like is I really like Eugenio Derbez. I think I enjoy him. He's a comedic actor I enjoy. Everything he's done outside of the Overboard remake, I enjoy him, and he has heart.
He's playing straight man in this movie a lot.
Yeah, he is. And I normally like Samara Weaving in most things. I thought she's okay. She's not a likable character in this movie, though.
She's not redeemable.
I don't really follow as they try to make her sympathetic because she's only concerned about her image. She's cheating with a married man. She knows it. And then it's a relationship, you know.
The plot of this movie, if my preview didn't give it away, the plot of this movie is convoluted.
Well, I'll tell you this, the plot of this movie is very much the plot of Jennifer Lopez's and Owen Wilson's Marry Me that came out earlier this year, where she's a pop star whose husband cheats on her and she grabs a random guy, and then it's the random guy, can he fit into the pop star world? Only this is, can random guy live out the movie starlet's life? She's a mega celebrity, she's out of touch.
The thing that legitimately made me grab the remote and pause it, not once but twice, is after the thing that sets up the plot, the incident, what sets up the plot, is when Antonio accidentally bikes into the vehicle that is adjacent to our main characters having an argument, having a romantic spat, and then to try to justify the fact that they're having a romantic argument on the street, two people independent of each other without conversation both think, oh, well, we should absolutely set up Antonio with Olivia. It didn't make any sense the first time.
It's a ridiculous,
how a second character would also think of it. It doesn't make any sense.
Right. And it's can a regular guy teach this out of touch celebrity what real love is? You know, this plot is ridiculous. But here's the thing. I have fun with rom-coms. I enjoy a lot of rom-coms.
I really do.
I think the comedy in this film doesn't always work. No. And you mentioned it. I felt like it got really bogged down when they started going into B and C subplots on background characters. Man. I'm like, why do we have so many multiple subplots with all these people? I did like the mother, Antonio's mother. I thought she was a scene stealer. I thought she was really funny. She brought the best comedy, I think.
The families I thought really did a good job. The Kim family, all of the extended family for our main character Antonio. I think they did a really good job with that. I even kind of liked his first wife or girlfriend or however that's concluded. But like I say, once we got to like the third or fourth scene where the private eyes are
that's what I didn't understand
together.
Because I like Ravi Patel, one of those private eyes. I really like him in things. And I was excited to see him right away. We're like, oh, Ravi Patel, he's a good comedic actor. But I never understood why they continued to be in the movie.
No, and
then their plot made zero sense. Cut that out. Save me some time.
One of the great things about rom-coms is you're supposed to be able to eat them kind of like baked Lays. You know, you're supposed to be able to open the bag and just kind of keep munching on them. This is 2 hours long, and I think it's
too
45
long.
minutes longer than it needs to be.
It's too long,
Like
absolutely.
they could have kept the romantic subplot nice and tight, and I think we could have gotten mined as much comedy gold out of it as we were going to. But the people that wrote this were the people that wrote Wedding Crashers, and you can kind of see it.
I can see a little bit
You
of
see
DNA
kind of the
with
bones
that.
of it. Like I say, I like rom-coms as well. It's one of my guilty pleasure genres that I go back to. I've got How I Met Your, or excuse me, My Big Fat Greek Wedding.
Sure.
One of my favorite movies of all
Absolutely.
time. Romantic comedies are fantastic. I don't see any reason to go back to this one, really, for anything.
I agree with that. I do think this film had a little more heart than I was expecting when it came to the family portion of it.
I'll agree to that. And actually, like the scenes with the private eyes end up rooming together to give each other mutual support.
Yeah.
I thought that was fine. There was lots of heart
Yeah,
there.
it just was weird in this movie.
And the family dynamic was like I won't spoil it, but there's a
Yeah.
scene at the end of the movie where a lot of heartfelt things
Yeah.
were said
I
about
enjoyed
one of the
that.
characters. I thought it was really good, but at the same time, I wondered why it was so long.
I don't disagree with you at all. What did you end up giving The Valet?
Sorry, I gave it 2 out of 5.
All right. Yeah, that's fair. I gave it 3. I'm a sucker for rom-coms.
Sure.
It's not anything special, absolutely.
No, like I say, in this day and age where, 20 years ago, something like this coming across the screen would have been pretty mundane. Now you're spoiled for choice. You can turn on to any of a myriad streaming studios. You can go down to the movie theater and watch anything. I don't know why you'd spend 2 hours watching this.
I'm with you on that for sure. Speaking of things in the movie theaters, let's take a look ahead at what is coming soon. I'm looking at the weekend of June 3rd. Let me just say, they can't all be Top Gun weekends. The weekend of June 3rd, we have Crimes of the Future, which is the new David Cronenberg film starring Viggo Mortensen, Lea Seydoux, and Kristen Stewart. It had people walking out of it in Cannes, and Cronenberg loves that. So watch out. If you're a Cronenberg fan, check it out. If you're not, maybe study up on what you're about to walk into. We also have a film called Watcher, which is a Romanian film about a serial killer who's stalking a city, and a young actress notices a mysterious stranger has been watching her. I wonder if it's the same person. And then lastly, streaming, I believe over on Netflix, we have a film called Hollywood Stargirl, which is the sequel to a previous film called Stargirl. This one follows the antics and adventures of Stargirl Caraway, played by Grace VanderWaal. It also has Judy Greer and Uma Thurman in it. It seems like it's a nice young adult comedy. So those are the films coming out June 3rd. You're going to want to stay tuned to that show for sure. Before we move any further, though, we want to thank our sponsor, Marcus Theaters, the Palace here in Sun Prairie. Thank you for sponsoring this program. Thank you for showing us those shows, providing dream loungers for any time we want to go and sit and watch a movie. It's holiday weekend as we record this, and I know I'll be sitting in a dream lounger a few times this weekend. So again, thank you. Next week, I am going to be talking about such films as Top Gun Maverick, which I already saw, and it's going to be a fun time next week. Also have the Chippendales Rescue Rangers movie.
Heard
That's
good
right.
things.
Bob's Burgers movie. We're going animated movies based on TV shows.
There we go.
And we're going to talk about George Carlin's American Dream documentary that's on HBO Max right now. And I'm going to be talking about all this with Jeff Robbins. So buckle up. We're going to have some fun. But, sir, I want to thank you again for coming in, watching these movies, being partially disturbed by things.
Yep. Well,
And,
you've led me to some fun stuff over the last couple of years. So.
yeah. That's good. So we
Absolutely.
can continue to keep bringing you back.
Amen.
I'm waiting for the one that turns you away. Like, I'm not watching this stuff
Nope.
anymore. We're just not having fun. So we'll hopefully have you back again soon this summer. Until next week, though, when I'll have my helmet on and we'll be talking about aeroplanes and such. My name is Jamison.
And I'm Michael.
Thanks for watching.